In 1979, Australian racing driver Peter Brock crossed the finish line at Bathurst 1000. He had just achieved the impossible. He qualified on pole position. He led the race from start to finish. He won by a staggering 6-lap margin. On the very last lap of the race, with absolutely no pressure from behind, he set a new touring car lap record. It remains the most dominant victory in the history of Australian motorsport. And the car that made it possible was the Holden Torana A9X. But here is the craziest part of that story. The A9X was the most successful racing car Holden ever built. It was a purpose-built weapon designed to destroy Ford on the mountain. And yet, just as it reached the absolute peak of its dominance, Holden quietly killed it off. They replaced it with a family sedan, dropped the V8 engine from the lineup, and pretended the greatest muscle car they ever built never existed. Today, we are diving into the legendary story of the Holden Torana A9X, the iconic 308 Iron Lion 5.8 engine that powered it, and why the car that conquered Bathurst was ultimately betrayed by its own creators. Bathurst, 1972. The air crackled with tension as a young Peter Brock took his place on the starting grid, not in a roaring V8, but behind the wheel of a Holden LJ Torana GTHO XU1, a 6-cylinder underdog facing off against Ford's heavyweight Falcons. Brock's machine, light on its feet and powered by a 202 cubic inch red motor, was tuned to perfection. He qualified 4 seconds clear of the nearest Ford Falcon, and he immediately seized control of the race. The lap charts tell the story. After the first pit stop, Brock never gave back the lead. 3 scheduled stops, fuel, tyres, and a quick spark plug check, each executed like clockwork. He crossed the finish line 23 seconds ahead of the closest Ford, a margin that sent shockwaves through the paddock. The crowd on the mountain roared for the little Torana. The headlines blared Brock's "Torana beats the big V8." Spectators cheered the car's howl up the climb, marveling at how Brock's smooth, almost effortless pace through the tight corners made the mighty Falcons look clumsy. For Holden, this was more than just a win. It was proof that agility, clever engineering, and a fearless driver could topple brute force. Brock, at just 27, became a household name overnight. A rising star who had shown that the muscle car war was not just about horsepower. It was about outsmarting, outdriving, and outlasting the competition. But glory never lasts long in a rivalry this fierce. Ford would soon answer with more power, and Holden would be forced to rethink its small car philosophy. The question was clear: could nimble handling and 6-cylinder cunning keep Holden on top, or would the V8 arms race change everything? And in the end, which deserves the title, Brock's A9X or Ford's GTHO Phase 3? That debate still rages wherever car fans gather. Ford wasted no time licking its wounds. The Falcon GTHO Phase 3 thundered onto the scene. A brute in every sense, with 351 cubic inches of Cleveland 5.8 muscle, 300 horsepower, and a mountain of torque. On paper, it was the car to beat, lighter than before, stripped for speed and engineered with just one purpose: to crush Holden on the mountain. Alan Moffat became the face of Ford's counterattack. His calm, calculating style the perfect match for the GTHO's raw force. Beside him, Colin Bond sharpened the rivalry, each man determined to keep Holden's upstart Torana in their rearview mirror. The GTHO's stats told a story of escalation. Factory figures claimed 465 Newton-meters of torque at 3,400 revolutions per minute. Road tests clocked the Phase 3 at 0 to 100 in under 7 seconds, lightning for a full-size sedan in the early 70s. On the long straights of Bathurst, the Falcon's deep bellow became a warning shot. In 1971, Moffat powered through to a Bathurst win, while Bond's relentless pace ensured Ford's name stayed at the top of the results sheets. The headlines screamed of a new arms race. Ford's philosophy was simple: bigger, faster, more. Holden's engineers couldn't ignore the threat. The GTHO's dominance forced a rethink of everything: engine capacity, chassis strength, and the very idea of what a touring car should be. The days of six-cylinder cunning were numbered. If Holden wanted to stay in the fight, it needed more than agility, it needed firepower. The rivalry wasn't just about brands anymore, it was about pride, reputation, and the right to call yourself King of the Mountain. With Moffat and Bond leading Ford's charge, the pressure on Holden reached a boiling point. The stage was set for a new kind of weapon, a machine built not just to compete, but to destroy. Holden's greatest weapon in the muscle car war wasn't just a body or a badge, it was the engine under the bonnet. The 308 cubic inch V8, known everywhere as the Iron Lion, was a homegrown powerhouse. This wasn't a simple drop-in. Squeezing a big V8 into the compact Torana shell demanded a total rethink. The engineers had to strengthen the chassis, rework the engine mounts, and reinforce the driveline just to handle the torque. In road trim, the Iron Lion delivered around 169 horsepower, enough to make the A9X a serious street threat. But with a few race tweaks, high compression pistons, a hot camshaft with 0.560-inch lift, and a free-breathing exhaust, the same engine could roar to nearly 300 horsepower at Bathurst. Cam lift, compression, and carburation all changed in the name of speed, pushing the limits of what a street-legal car could do. The difference between a showroom A9X and a race-prepped one was night and day. On the street, the Iron Lion was smooth and tractable. On the mountain, it became a snarling beast, pushing the Torana down Conrod Straight at speeds that left the Falcons scrambling. Every time Brock buried the throttle, you could hear the work of Holden's engineers in Dandenong, the Iron Lion's growl echoing off the mountain. This was the heart of the A9X's legend, a purpose-built engine that turned a clever car into a Bathurst destroyer. Homologation was the secret handshake of the Australian touring car world, a legal loophole disguised as paperwork, and Holden knew how to play the game. In 1977, the Confederation of Australian Motorsport, CAMS, laid down the law. If you wanted to race it, you had to build it for the street, not just one or two, but at least 250 road-registered cars, each carrying every part you planned to unleash on Mount Panorama. Holden's answer was the A9X Performance Vehicle Package, option code stamped on the build sheet like a badge of intent. The official CAMS application listed every piece: four-wheel ventilated disc brakes, never before seen on a Holden, heavy-duty 10-bolt Salisbury rear axle, limited slip differential, and that unmistakable reverse-facing bonnet scoop. The paperwork was not just a formality. It was a declaration that the A9X would be born as a weapon, not just dressed up for the showroom. Dealer brochures from August 1977 boasted that it was the first Holden with four-wheel disc brakes, and the build records confirmed it. 405 A9Xs rolled out, far exceeding the 250-unit threshold. Each one carried the A9X code in its vehicle identification number, the mechanical upgrades locked in from the factory. CAMS, acting as the gatekeeper, scrutinized every submission. Holden's engineers handed over stamped parts lists, production schedules, and a signed declaration from the chief engineer. Every rear disc, every heavy-duty axle, every scoop had to be present on the road cars before the race teams could bolt on race numbers and head for Bathurst. The result was a machine that was as legal on the street as it was lethal on the circuit. Every A9X, sedan or hatch, left the factory already qualified for war. For Ford, it meant facing a rival that had not just bent the rules, but mastered them. Victory at Sandown in 1977 put Holden's A9X on the map, but Bathurst that year was a gut punch. Brock's pole position meant nothing when a broken rear end sent the car limping to retirement. The lesson was brutal, but Holden's engineers went back to work, reinforcing the axle and cooling system that winter. By 1978, Brock and new co-driver Jim Richards arrived at Bathurst with a car that would not quit. They crossed the line first, silencing doubters and restoring Holden's pride. The following year, Bob Morris clinched the Australian Touring Car Championship, proving the A9X was more than a one-track wonder. By 1979, Brock and Richards delivered the ultimate Bathurst demolition, pole position, every lap led, 6 laps clear, and a lap record on the final tour. The A9X had become the car Ford feared most. Holden's boardroom was not swayed by trophies or legends. The ink was barely dry on Brock's 6-lap Bathurst demolition when the decision came down. The future belonged to the VB Commodore. Launched in October 1978, the Commodore was pitched as the new flagship, a modern Euro-inspired sedan meant to win both driveway battles and showroom wars. Internal memos and press releases from the era spell it out. Research and development dollars were pulled from the Torana program, and the A9X was left to run out its final laps. Executives argued that the Torana and Commodore overlapped in the market, cannibalizing each other's sales. With the Commodore's Group C homologation underway and the Torana's days numbered, Holden effectively banned its own best weapon. The irony is hard to miss. Just as the A9X reached its peak, the company that built it shut the door, leaving fans to wonder, did Holden sacrifice a king for a new contender? Or did they simply fear what they had unleashed? Holden built a weapon to crush Ford. Brock on pole, 6 laps clear, lap record on the final tour. Then, in a twist of corporate betrayal, they killed their own legend. Today, A9X values soar, and the rivalry burns on. So, A9X or Falcon GTHO Phase 3, who truly reigns supreme? Drop your pick below.